All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this Thursday evening. I'm so surprised I got the day of the week right because I don't even know what the day is sometimes. Through all this craziness that's happening around the world. I hope everybody and their families are staying safe and healthy. And as all of us entrepreneurs on this call, we just got to keep hustling through it. I'm sure everyone's kind of going through some type of new and exciting improvement. Might be something you weren't expecting, but something that is just a new challenge for us. So we're facing it here at our side. No matter how much planning you do, sometimes you can't account for some of this stuff that's happening. But using the resources with Tiffany and the Small Business Center, with NAFIS at YSpace, use each other, use a lot of the mentors that are around, and we are, because everybody's going through it. So but I'm very excited to talk about this topic. I was expecting more of an in-person thing, but we're going to try this virtually. So as Nafis said, if you guys have your videos, that would help me a lot, just so I can make sure I haven't put anybody to sleep yet, because then we can keep going. If you do have any questions, just let me know. I can't really see the way I have my PowerPoint presentation set up. I can't see if you guys ask questions. Oh, maybe I can. Yes, I can see them. Okay.
Sorry, will you be sharing the slides afterwards?
I will, well, NAFIS will be somehow.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay. All right, so as NAFIS said, my name is Jessica Rawlley. I am one of the co-founders of TIEIT. This is my third company that I have started and bootstrapped. And so, yeah, I guess I do have a little bit of experience with bootstrapping. And the mental health aspect of it is something that, to be quite honest, we still struggle with every day. And I think that's something that entrepreneurs struggle with on an ongoing basis, is getting to your norm, getting to what makes sense to you, and making sure that everything's right up there. Bootstrapping requires a lot of grit. It requires a lot of passion and a lot of hard work, and you just got to keep going through it. So bootstrapping is a question that a lot of businesses start by asking before they start their business. And we mentor a lot of companies as well. And so a lot of the times they ask us, like, do I bootstrap or do I not? Do I just go straight for VC funding? Do I go straight for angels? And it differs for every business. But it's not impossible to do bootstrapping. It's just, do you have what it takes to do it? Because it's not easy. And so my goal with today's presentation is just to talk to you about bootstrapping, what it is, pros and cons of doing it. So I'm going to be pretty open with what we've had to go through and what we haven't, all the way through to just tips on how to bootstrap. So giving you real life stuff of what we've done in the past and what we're continuing to do as well. So okay, if you want to go to the next slide. So like I said earlier, if anybody does have any questions, we are going to I have some time at the end for questions, but feel free to send it in the chat as well. All right, so pros and cons of bootstrapping. So let's just go to pros right away. So the first one is you are the master of your own destiny. So bootstrapping is the best guarantee that you can run the business the way you want to. You're not having to, ask people for permission. You can have your culture the way that you have your particular culture, the way you're running it. And you don't have any. And by the way, I should back up a second and say that this presentation is not meant to talk you out of going to VCs or getting outside investment by any means, because we're now at the point in our business now as well that we're starting to really strongly think if we need to go down that route as well. So this is no way is trying to steer you away from it, but it does allow you more flexibility. So the vision that you have for your company is yours, right? It's yours and the rest of your team's vision. You're not having somebody dictate to you that, listen, we need to have this many at this time. You need to stop doing features. You need to stop development time because we need to make this. It's all up to you and making sure you're reaching your goals for your goals that you have set for you. It is a quicker way to launch your business, so you're not spending time ahead of time doing the pitches. If anybody has started to go down that route, doing pitches is a lot of work. It's a lot of heartache as well. So this way you can just go right to launch to make sure that you do have a proper business model, you do have a good product, you are meeting people's needs. So it is much quicker way to launch your business. And then the last point, one more, Nafis, is that you just stay lean and mean. Has anybody read The Lean Startup? It's a good book to read, but you're a little bit more concerned about your expenses this way. So you're not having to, you have a little bit more flexibility. You can take risks with your own money, but you tend not to do it as much. And that can be a scary thing, but it does allow you to just be a little bit more lean and mean with your money. Next slide. I have to go on this one too. Okay. Let's talk about the cons of bootstrapping. You don't get the benefit of mentors with skin in the game. So if anybody has mentors are great to have in your business. I highly recommend, if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have somebody that you're just talking to and just talking through ideas, please get one. Please talk to Nafis because he can hook you up with somebody that's amazing. Mentors change the way your business is because it changes the way that you look at what you're doing. Sometimes when you're kind of sitting in your office or sitting wherever you are, you think your ideas are the greatest, are the best, and you don't think of it in a different way. When you don't have VC money, when you don't have external money coming in, that means you're not getting mentors. That means you're not getting somebody backing that money, and they don't have skin in the game, so they're not going to give you ideas or open doors for you that are going to basically scale your business, right? They're going to help you open more doors. So that is a little bit of a disadvantage when you don't have somebody with the money throwing it in and making sure that you're growing your company. Not to say that you can't get mentors when you're bootstrapping, because we have a lot of mentors that have really changed the way we've looked at our business, and they still open doors for us, they still refer, but they don't necessarily have that skin in the game by putting their own money where their mouth is, really. Second, you may not grow as fast. So this we'll cover a little bit later, but this is a struggle that we're having actually right now. So we're scaling. We're definitely at a scaling mode, but we're not growing as fast as we want to. So for example, the money that we are consistently putting back into the business is going on R&D and technology and support. It's not necessarily going into the things that are really going to grow your business, which is the marketing and the sales. Those kind of, in our business, it's kind of pushed to the side. So we haven't done as much marketing as we want to, which unfortunately leads to your company not growing as fast as you want it to as well. The third point makes me laugh. You may not get a regular salary, which I'm sure all of us here are facing that. In a bootstrap company, you are the last person to get paid. If you are the first person to get paid, you're doing something wrong. Sorry to be blunt, but you are. You got to put your money back into the business. If you want to see it grow and you're taking money out to pay yourself, and I'm not talking like, pay your bills because everyone's got them and you got to live still, but I'm talking like the luxurious salary of, oh yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a CEO, I need to make 150K. No, not yet. So that's the only downfall of this side of it, is you aren't getting that regular salary that you may think you deserve at the moment, but keep pushing through and you will get there. All right. The next slide is, sorry, I have to go on this screen to see where you are. Okay, so different ways to bootstrap. First one is investing your own personal finances, which aren't always fun, but again, as long as you know that money's coming back, you're good to go. Another way to bootstrap is doing it as a side hustle. If anybody does not know what I mean by a side hustle, but if you have, let's say, a full-time or a part-time job and you were wanting to start a business on the side, it is a good way to bootstrap it, because you're just taking the salary that you're making on the full or part-time job and just putting it right back into your business. And I know a lot of companies that are doing it. If you can keep doing that and if you can have the focus to do it, all for you. I know personally I couldn't focus on both, because I put 100% focus into one thing. So if I tried for about a week, I had a full-time job and I knew I wanted to do something else and I couldn't do both. And I made a choice. So you kind of have to figure that out too. As long as you're giving the business the full attention that it needs, the full focus that it needs while you're doing your full-time gig or your part-time gig, then all for it. Then I would definitely continue doing that until you realize that no, it requires 100% of you. Another way is borrowing money from family members. That's when you go back to parents and grandparents and remind them of how wonderful and cute you are and that they should invest in you. You can definitely do that. It's definitely a way to do it. Sometimes I've seen people give away equity to their family members to, again, kind of put some skin in the game for the family members. Others just, put interest on it or something. But remember, if you're borrowing money from family, give them something back for their investment. I've seen others go, well, they're family, they're just supposed to give me money. Not really. So try to find something in there to incentivize them to give you money. I've seen that works a lot better than I'm just cute, give me money. Next one is applying for grants. So this is something actually that we did not take advantage of when we first started. And that's because we were so focused on growing the business that we didn't take the time out to say, hey, these are small business grants that are available to us. Why don't we look into them? And I'm sure Tiffany can help you a lot on the grant side of things. Small business centers are great to give resources on what grants are available depending on where you are, whether you're starting, whether you're ideation. The grants are great. The money's there. And if you meet the criteria and if you've got a great business idea and it meets all the criteria for the grants, go for it. It does take time though to apply. So make sure that you are kind of carving out time for it, but not losing 100% of your attention on the business. And that's what we felt at the time, that we were taking away attention from the business. But now looking back, that is a regret. We should have put a little bit more time into seeing what more grants are available for us when we first started out. Bartering is an interesting one. So when you're first starting your business, there's obviously essentials that you need to get off the ground. And why not talk to another startup, or why not talk to another small business and see if you can barter some services? So, for example, if you're a software company and you need another software, or you are a service-based company or a product-based company, why not give a bit of your product out to a software company and say, hey, listen, I'll give you guys a couple of my products. Do you mind, giving me a 6-month license for free instead? So what you're doing now is the other business will then promote your company and vice versa, right? You're not having to take any money out of your pocket. You're not having to write a check at the time. You're just using your services to pay for it, or your product essentially. But that works well because you're cross promoting, you're boosting both companies up, which works really well. And then the last one is the biggest one, investing back into the business with the company's earnings. So AKA being customer funded. So that is the biggest way to bootstrap, right? Is the first dollar you make goes right back into the business, into marketing, into sales, into keep promoting the company over and over again until you just keep doubling. And then you just keep using that money over and over again. Next slide. Okay, so tips for bootstrapping. Oh, okay. So before you actually start your business and putting the dollars into it and, quitting your full-time job and doing this 100%, the biggest mistake I see a lot of startups make is not validating their business idea before they invest in it. So literally before you start putting, time and money into your business idea, confirm its potential. Make sure that you are meeting a need. Make sure you are meeting a challenge before you start actually putting dollars into it, right? And I'm not saying this needs to be like a long, drawn-out process that keeps you from actually starting the business. It's simply just ensuring that you're going down the right path, you have the right process, and that you are proving that, you have a customer base, a potential customer base to buy into your business idea. And we did this with TIEIT. We knew that we had a challenge. Okay, fine. We were going to build the system out for ourselves. But what we did is we went out to our existing customers and we said, hey, listen, what are you guys using right now? What do you like and dislike from other CRM systems? What do you like from your marketing automation software and things like that? And that's when we realized that the clients were like, no, when you're done building whatever you're building over there, sign us up, because we're having the same challenge, right? So before we went down the path of stopping all client projects and putting it 100% into TIEIT, we really validated it. We knew we had it. We just needed to get assurance from others as well. Another idea, if anybody has, an actual physical product business, maybe you're not ready to ship it yet. Maybe you want to do a social media campaign to drive traffic to a landing page. You know how they've got just different products that you can just like get a big buzz about and see if people will actually buy into it. Do that before you actually invest in, the import and the export and the building of the actual product as well. Next. All right. Pick your co-founder wisely. Why I put this one in there is because I've talked to a lot of startups, unfortunately, that have stopped going down the path of growing their business because they didn't pick their co-founder wisely. They were on two different paths, two different visions. And when you are bootstrapping, you and your co-founder, or you and your team, all have to have that same vision. You have to be on the same page, because it's so critical. I mean, everybody to take every dollar and put it back into your company as opposed to writing a check to yourself requires a different mindset. It requires a different point of view of your business, that we know that this is going to continue growing. We know that this is going to be $1 billion business. We just need to sacrifice a little bit right now. But if one co-founder wants to buy that BMW and you are at a whole different page, you guys are going to butt heads a lot. And so you want to make sure that you guys are thinking alike, because bootstrapping is tough, and it is a mindset that both partners would have to have. Another reason why would be expenses. So make sure that you guys are on the same page with expenses of what actually needs to be invested in right now. Do we need top end laptops and desks, or are we okay just, using what we have right now? So those little things that you don't think about, they do make a big difference. But again, you just both have to be on the same mindset. All right. Another tip for bootstrapping would be choose a business model to optimize your revenue flow. So the reason I put this is obviously when you're bootstrapping, revenue might not come in as quickly, but based on your business, based on your product or your service or idea, what is the best route? What is the best way to structure the business model to get the quickest revenue in, right? So, because you don't have the luxury of having this money, your cash flow, just sitting around making sure that your rent's getting paid. You need to generate revenue now, right? You need to go and knock on doors, not literally right now. You need to pick up the phone. You need to do whatever you can to get that sale in, right? But what does that sale look like to you? So is it a recurring revenue model? If it is software, that's easy, right? You could do a SaaS model, sell it every month on a recurring basis, or is it an annual recurring revenue? Is it a one-off product? Is it a service base where you've got a setup fee? Maybe you want to start charging a setup fee to get a little bit more increased revenue, and then, you don't need to continue doing the setup fee later. There's so many different ideas. It's just, you just need to figure out, what's a sales cycle look like and how quickly can we just start getting revenue in. All right. Keep a close eye on cash flow. So, accounting in general is just so important for any business, regardless of if you're bootstrapping or not. But when you are bootstrapping, it's even more important, because you literally have to keep an eye on every single dollar that's going out, every single dollar that's coming in. So what are you spending on? Are you spending on, your rent, or is it payroll? Is it server space? Is it your website? Is it marketing? Every single cent you need to know is what's going out, and is it coming back in some way, right? So you just want to keep track of where the money's coming in. You want to make sure that when you are bootstrapping, though, I can't emphasize this enough, is that you're not working out of your personal bank account, that you are opening up a business bank account on its own. And you are keeping track properly of how much money you're putting in, because remember, all that personal finance that you're putting in, you are going to get it back, right? But you got to keep track of it. So you got to keep track of it properly from an accounting point of view. The next one is don't outsource jobs you can do yourself. This also was a hard lesson that we learned. So when you're bootstrapping, you gotta hustle, right? You gotta do every job possible that you may think is beyond you. It's too, I shouldn't have to update the website content. I shouldn't have to create an invoice. Well, no, when you're bootstrapping, when you're starting a company, you're doing every single job, right? You're wearing 17 different hats on any certain day, but do it at the beginning, because there are certain jobs that you can get done probably a lot quicker, by the way, than going and outsourcing it to somebody else. So I know that sounds, redundant. You got to keep focus on what you're doing, but there are certain things that you could probably do maybe on a weekend. Maybe that's when you're going to catch up on all your accounting and do all your invoices or whatever it is, but do it yourself. Don't try and outsource it. If you can't, if you can avoid it, just every dollar counts, right? All right. So, a couple of things that I always see, in terms of outsourcing jobs, a big mistake I see a lot of founders make is they outsource sales right at the beginning. I am a huge believer. I don't know how others feel on the call, but if you're a founder of a company and you can't sell your product or your service yourself, you got a problem, right? So at the beginning, try to determine what does that sales process look like so that you can give it to somebody else so they can follow it, right? So sales is definitely a job you don't want to outsource, because you got to prove it yourself that it can be a sellable product, that people want it. What's the pitch look like? And like I said, so that you could just replicate it and give it to a salesperson to follow. All right, now we can go to the next one. Don't sweat the small stuff. Okay, so what do I mean by that? And I'm kind of using a lot of examples, everyone, just from, I mentor a lot of startups, and I just see errors that I see made. And so I'm just kind of sharing that stuff and stuff that we've made as well. So if you can learn from me, power to you. Now, some of you may argue with me on this point, but I see a lot of startups spending a lot of time and resources on little things like perfecting their logo or perfecting their website too early on. And I'm not saying, by the way, that a logo is not important. A logo is the face of your company. It's the face of your business. So it is important. However, if you're spending far too long working on a logo as opposed to your sales pitch, you got a problem, right? It's less important at your logo, as an example, is just less important at the early stages, because you got to make sure you got to build traction first. You got to make sure you have a proper business first. Later on, you can always do a launch and do a brand new logo. We did that. Our first logo we built literally in 5 minutes. And then a year later, we realized that our old logo anyways, looked too much like the Internet Explorer. And then we were like, oh yeah, okay, maybe we should change this now. And then we spent far too much time than I thought on our second version of it, but we did it. But we didn't spend too much time at the beginning. The logo is not what's going to sell your product. It's not what's going to sell your software. The product itself is, right? So just keep that in mind, that you might think something might be really, really big at the beginning. It's not. You can always spend time with it later when more cash flow is coming in. All right, next slide. Okay, so this one's an interesting one. I said don't spend resources on testing ideas. So by testing ideas, like an example I would say would be marketing campaigns. Okay, so I know that sounds really redundant, but when you are VC backed, you've got the money to play with, right? They give you money and they're like, here's 5 different marketing channels or 10 different marketing channels, go. Here's a bunch of money. Let's build these different marketing campaigns, and hopefully 1 or 2 are actually profitable. But you've got a good ROI, so it's all gonna come in, right? But when you're bootstrapping, you do need to test the ideas, but test them in a very creative way, right? So you don't have the resources and the money to throw everything into PPC ads or Facebook ads, but you got a little bit. You got a little bit to play with. Maybe you could do a little bit of Facebook ads and some organic social media. You could do bartering. You could do cross promotion with others. All I'm trying to say in this slide is really just be creative with your marketing specifically, because you don't have the backing to do it. You don't have the cash to do it, but marketing is just so important. But find creative ways to test your marketing.
Sorry, what are the creative ways that you're suggesting?
Yeah, so sorry, I don't know who asked that question, but it could be more organic ideas, right? So it could be maybe cross promoting with another similar company that that has similar services that you can tack on. So a lot of how we grew at a rapid scale when we first started was through partnerships. So we partnered with like marketing agencies who wanted exciting, innovative tools to give their clients to do their marketing and to do their lead generation and to manage their data. And so we partnered with a marketing agency. They had a lot of money to invest on the marketing side, and they kind of tacked our product onto it. They did Facebook ads and PPC ads, and we used kind of their resources to see how it performed. What kind of people were interacting with the ads on Facebook versus PPC. So we found Facebook works a lot better. Well, guess what? We don't have to invest in PPC. We can just invest our dollars into Facebook. Or just doing, again, more organic stuff on social media. LinkedIn messaging is another great resource that we do as well. So when you're researching, seeing other people's posts, are they having challenges with whatever product or service you offer, and reach out directly to them, right? It's just, with bootstrapping, you just got to be creative. You got to be crafty, let's say.
Right. What would you say is like the best way to kind of test the market for your concept or idea to validate it then when you're bootstrapping? Like somebody suggested doing a very small survey with Facebook, like very targeted, small group.
Do you have a product or a service?
Developing a product. Okay.
Like a physical product itself?
Yeah.
Yeah. Surveys do work well. I saw one company actually do a really cool video where they kind of tease people about the video, and then they posted it up on social media, but then it led them to go to a landing page where they filled out a form that said, like, would you be interested in a product like this? They fill out their information. You're not asking anybody for money. You're just getting them to opt in, right? But now What you're doing is you're generating leads before the product's even launched. Yeah, videos, like I said, work really well. Social media posts, you can still cross promote with other companies as well. If a company thinks that your product would be useful for their clients, ask them if they would do an e-blast and say, hey, we heard about this innovative company that's thinking of launching X product. What do you think of it? Give us your feedback. And then again, they can fill out a form or they can email back or something like that.
Thanks.
Yeah. No problem.
Thank you.
All right. Next slide. Actually, you can click it twice. So this one kind of goes together. So to my earlier point, you got to be scrappy, you got to be thrifty. Being fancy doesn't always get the job done, right? So I just mentioned creating a video. If someone has a Mac, use iMovie. If someone has, I know there's so many different movie creative things that you can use out there. Try a free tool and build it yourself. Be scrappy. I remember when we attended our very first trade show. This was for our other company. That's funny. We didn't even have money to buy that carpet that goes underneath. So we were standing on the concrete, which if anybody has ever done it, it's the worst thing ever, because no matter what shoes you have, you wake up the next day with like a horrible back pain. So yeah, we couldn't even afford carpet. We had to bring our foldable table in because we couldn't afford that either. We just said, yes, just give us our little 5x5 booth. We'll be fine. Don't worry. We brought balloons. And that was only because my mom's an event planner. So I just stole a couple balloons from her. By stole, I mean borrowed. And then we took chairs and we took a table and a tablecloth from our house, and we went. And right across the trade show booth from us was our biggest competitor at the time. And they had the best looking trade show booth ever. They had the fluffy carpet, they had the leather chairs, they had the big tea, right? And for whatever reason, we had our roll-up banner at least. We had a lineup of people waiting for us at our trade show. Finally, the CEO of our competitor came over and goes, okay, what do you guys have? what's going on here? Because I just spent like a shit ton of money over there and I got nobody coming to my booth, but everyone's coming over here to see your balloons. So we use that story a lot because, again, you don't have to always be the fanciest to get the job done. But we walked out of that trade show with tons of leads. We focused on the product, right? We focused on what we had at the time. We were personable. We talked our way into a speaking engagement. So normally people are paying thousands of dollars to speak. We begged the show promoter. We said, can you just give us a time slot? They're like, listen, you can have it at lunchtime. Nobody comes at lunchtime. You know, you guys are startup. Fine, we'll give you the spot. We had standing room only. So that was so cool. We didn't even have to pay for that, but that generated a lot of buzz to our balloon booth, if you will. So just keep that story in mind because, like I said, you don't have to be the fanciest, but you just got to get the job done. So be scrappy as much as you can. Cutting personal expenses. This one was tough as a girl. I like to shop. I like shoes. I had to cut a lot of my personal expenses because I knew that I was putting it back into the business. And this is why, to my earlier point, you got to make sure you and your team have that vision that everybody is sacrificing, right? Not one person is taking on the load of sacrificing everything in their business that all of you guys are, right? It makes you come together as a team and put all of your effort into growing and building the business because you are all sacrificing right now, but there's a reason why you're doing it. And that reason is going to come soon, right? So, if you need to bunk in the basement, do it. Or, bunk with a family member at the time just to cut some personal expenses, do it, whatever you can. Any questions so far? I'm just going to check the chat real quick. I'll take a sip of water.
No, none for me.
Okay, cool. All right, so next slide. We'll keep going through. All right, so biggest mistakes when bootstrapping. So again, this is probably one of the biggest ones I've seen a lot of startups make is investing in an office space too early on. And when I say office space, I'm talking like a bigger office space. Where you're signing like 3 to 5 year leases. You don't want to do that. I will tell you another story that we had as well. So in our other business, when we were growing, so we were growing rapidly. We were the second fastest growing digital marketing franchise across the globe at the time. In 3 months, we closed 12 new franchisees. So that was huge cash flow coming in. And at the time, our other business partners, this is why I'm saying you need to have good business partners. He said, you know what, we need to have a really flashy office space. At the time we had, 2 offices connected to each other and we kind of scrapped. We put some tables together from IKEA, love IKEA. And he's like, no, we got to have a really nice office space with a boardroom and do the whole 9 yards. And so we believed him. We're like, okay, yeah, let's do it. We deserve office space. Look how much work we've done, right? So not to, we bought an office space in a city I'm not going to mention. We signed a 5-year lease. We were paying a lot of money for rent. We ended up also having to pay $1,000 a month just for internet. Yes.
What?
Just for internet. Yes. Because where we were located, it was considered a tech area. And so this one company was taking advantage of us and other tech companies. And that's what we did. So after a while, our sales started to drop because my other business partner in that business, unfortunately had health problems and he was running the entire sales division. So he ended up having a heart attack. He's fine now. But he had to take time off. So because of that, our sales totally dropped. So as you can imagine, we had still had this huge expense on our head that we had to pay. Eventually we couldn't keep up with the rent. So long story short, we had a nice knock on the door I still remember it was 6:30 at night. We were at the office, a nice knock on the door from the bailiff and kicking us out because we hadn't paid our rent for 2 months. So real story. So watch where you're spending your dollars. Make sure you actually do need that office space because we ended up getting like a 1,500 square foot office space for only 6 of us at the time. Way too much space. that was pure social distancing that we were doing at that time, because everybody was like in their own little corner at the time, and it was just unnecessary. So yeah, like if you now it's different because we're not in a world where we're doing a lot of in-person meetings at the current moment. But if your business can live off of doing things like online meetings a lot and taking advantage of Zoom and what you have there, like spaces like YSpace, you know, those are amazing spaces because you can have your area, you can have your boardroom, you can still look professional if a company or client wants to come in. But just be wary of that if you do really need it or not. So yeah. Next slide. Okay. Another big mistake is spending money on things that don't make money. You know, so kind of going back to our other picture or my other slide, my other story. When we moved into the office, as you can imagine, I went a little crazy at HomeSense and IKEA, and I was spending a lot of money on fancy decor and furniture that we really didn't need. And nobody really came to see anyways. So again, just be wary of that. And then eventually, you know, if you don't need to spend it, if it's not going to help with a sale, if it's not going to help from a marketing side, just ask yourself that question, you know, is this going to make me money? And that's actually now the common thing that me and my business partner ask each other a lot. We have a funny thing. So he spends the money. He's mainly on the tech side. So he's the one that is spending on server space and new technology and new languages and new developers. And I'm the one that's bringing the money in. Right. So I just say to him, just ask yourself this question, is this making us money in the long run? So he's constantly, I drilled that into his head now. So that's good. Next slide. Yeah, so another mistake is just taking unnecessary actions, right? So, you know, spending too much time on the logo, spending a lot of money into marketing, like the PPC ads and the paid ads that you may not need at the beginning if you're just trying to get, you know, traction as an example. Like if you have the money to do it, to get traction, obviously that's a much faster way to make sure you're getting opt-in from clients or potential customers. But if you don't have the money for it, like I said earlier, there are other craftier ways you can do it. Another mistake I see is hiring people too soon. You know, so I know that's really tough because you need people, you need resources to grow the company, but just make sure you are hiring the right people at the right time, right? So at the startup phase, do you really need a full-time accountant in your office all the time or a full-time bookkeeper? Can you have somebody on a part-time basis? The sales, do you need the salesperson before you've even made your first sale? Or should you as a co-founder or as a founder of the company go out, put your money where your mouth is and make that first sale yourself, right? That's what I would do. I would not go and get a salesperson first until you've actually made your first sale. Other things would be, you know, improving your product before it's even sold. So, you know, we struggle with this a lot on the technology side because my development team wants to constantly, develop and just keep perfecting the product. And my thing is, let's just take it out to our clients and get real feedback, and then we'll start perfecting it, right? But if you're consistently going, it's not perfect yet, I got to do this, I got to do that. If you haven't even sold it yet and you haven't got real feedback, what's the point, right? You're just spending more and more money into something that you don't know if it actually has traction or if it actually is solving a need. All right, next one. Yeah, I think I've mentioned this a couple of times, but yeah, your biggest mistake is not selling. So if you are just solely focused on the business and the product and just putting that together, but you're not getting opt-in, you're not getting traction, you're not building to see if it's solving a need, and thus you're not selling it, you're not getting validation, what's the point? Because you don't know if there actually is a need for the business, right? So my thing is get hung up on, get doors closed on you, but in this case, it's not going to happen. But, you know, just get validation, however it is. Talk to potential partners, talk to potential clients and say, this is what I'm thinking of doing. You know, can you help me out? And a good resource, and I hope Nafis and Tiffany don't mind me saying this, but use these guys because they have connections to potential clients of yours, and maybe they wouldn't mind, you know, hooking you up to somebody and saying, I'm a startup. Great, Tiffany, thank you. You know, I'm a startup. this is my business, this is my service, this is my product I have in mind. What do you think about it? You know, do you think it has value? Do you think there's a benefit to it? Would you buy it? Basically. And if they say no, ask them why. Ask questions. Don't just take the no and then be like, okay, well, have a good day. No. Ask questions. You need to figure out why they're saying no. So definitely use those resources that you guys have, the ones on the call today, Nafis and Tiffany, and see if they know somebody that maybe could hook you up just to have a quick phone call or a quick online meeting. All right. Next one is, aiming too low. So this is actually, I struggled with this a lot. My business partner and I, we're very yin and yang. He's always the forward thinker, like, you know, this is going to be a $10 billion company. And I'm like, oh, well, you know, let's just wait and see how we get there. Now my mindset's, no, we're going to be $20 billion, because if you aim too low, you don't do enough. Right. And I do find that a lot of companies that do bootstrap, they are aiming too low because they think they can't make it big, because unfortunately you hear too much about the companies that are in Silicon Valley and they're getting, you know, $5 million and $10 million. And you hear more about those companies, right? You don't hear enough about the companies that did hustle and did bootstrap and are making it big. And that's why I always tell people, when they want my entrepreneurial story, they're going to get the real stuff, right? I'm not shy in sharing our lows that we had, but you now see where we are now. You got to hit the low, you got to hit the rock bottom to get yourself back up, but don't aim low for your company. Just because you're bootstrapping, just because you don't have $1 million in your bank right now, it doesn't mean you're not going to be $1 billion company. So, just don't aim low. That would be the biggest mistake that I see a lot of startups make as well. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, you know, you hear a lot of stories, like I said, that are coming from companies that are VC backed or that have angels, but you really don't hear enough, in my opinion, about the companies that have bootstrapped it and have made it big. So a couple of success stories that I'm just going to tell you about. So this first one is Spanx. For any ladies on the call who know what this is, hopefully. So Sarah Blakely is the founder of Spanx. So she first came up with her, it's basically for people who don't know what Spanx are, it's women's undergarment that basically make you feel and look a lot skinnier than you are. It's amazing. So her now famous women's undergarment, when she actually was getting dressed for a party. She was unable to fit into this like form-fitting dress. And so she had to wear something underneath her white pants. So she decided to actually cut off pantyhose. Pantyhose are those that you wear under a dress. She actually cut those off and then put that on underneath her white pants. So at the age of 27, she launched her business using $5,000 of her personal savings. Okay. She even wrote a patent application. She filed it herself just to save on legal fees. So again, going back, if you can do a job yourself and you don't need to outsource it, do it yourself. Research, that's what Google's there for. Talk to other people, figure out how to do it. And that's what she did. And to date, she still owns 100% of Spanx, which had an estimated $400 million in sales in 2016. And she has not taken one single penny from outside investors. It's pretty impressive. Next one, GoPro. So Nick Woodman, he had an entertainment and promotions website. It was called Funbug, which apparently went bust in 2001. And then he decided to clear his head by going on a surfing trip in Australia and Indonesia. And inspiration hit him when he noticed that the cameras that the surfers wrapped around their wrists to photograph their adventures usually ended up breaking or falling off. So again, using his own personal savings, plus a $35,000 loan from his mother, he launched GoPro in 2002. So he bootstrapped until 2012. So for 10 years, he bootstrapped. And until a large tech manufacturer actually invested $200 million. And then 2 years after that, the company went public at $2.96 billion valuation.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty good, right?
Oh, man.
All right, I've got two more success stories for you. Apple, everyone knows about Apple, right? So they obviously started in their garage, and they had withdrawn from their respective colleges and began developing computer devices in Steve's parents' garage. After developing a few different models, the pair knew that they would need more financing, so Jobs had to go out and find a co-signer for his bank loan of $250,000. So they started bootstrapping. They went straight into the VC funding afterwards. Well, just the bank loans, and then eventually to that. Another similar example to the Apple one is Dell. So Michael Dell, for PC users, he started that in 1984 while attending university. So he started Dell as a side hustle. Okay. He built prototypes and he actually built the company out of his off-campus dorm. He eventually dropped out to focus on building the company. So he knew he had to put 100% in. And his first investment to start that company was only $1,000 from his family. And now we know where Dell is now. Sorry, was that a question or?
Nope.
No. Okay. All right. What's the next one? Wistia. So this was actually an interesting one. If anybody knows Wistia, they're like similar to Vimeo, like the the video hosting platform, right? So they actually took on, this is a different story. So they took on $17 million in debt to buy out their investors to take full back control. So what happened was they started their company and they went straight for VC funding, but then they realized that they made a mistake. They did not want VC funding. They did not want outside investors. So they actually took on $17 million in debt just to buy back their company and take back full control, right? And they started with angel funding of $650,000. And there's a video on this in a blog that the Wistia founders actually put out. It's a really good blog because they were pretty raw with the mistakes that they made and why they chose to go backwards into the bootstrapping route. But yeah, part of that money, they mentioned that they bought an office, they bought new computers, they paid themselves the big salaries, and they ran out of money so quickly. They had to keep going back to investors, right? They have to keep doing seed and series and series and series over and over again. And then that's where their culture broke, right? So the culture of their company that they had at the beginning in terms of their vision of where they wanted the company to be changed focus completely. They ended up spending more money than they were actually growing. And with tech, you're told to spend money to make money. And they just knew that they could do it a lot differently. So that's an interesting story because they started with outside funding and then they realized they made a mistake. So, all right. Next slide is, do I have what it takes to be a bootstrapper? So after everything I've kind of mentioned to you and all the stories and the mistakes and the pros and the cons, the question actually comes back to you. And this is where the whole mental health aspect comes into play, because for sure, when you are bootstrapping a company, you got to have a thick skin, which you have to have regardless in as being an entrepreneur, right? But you also have to have determination and a lot of grit just to keep going, right? Like there will be times when you do start to expand and scale that you are going to hire people and their salaries are going to be more important than yours, right? So if you don't have money in the bank and you got to make payroll, who gets paid first, right? That's a mind shift that you have to be okay with. And that's where you got to have like good mental health for that and make sure that you're buying into the vision. You're buying into this whole concept of you bootstrapping, because it is a completely different mind shift, right? Just talking from a bootstrapper to somebody who is VC funded, they have their own stresses. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that getting VC backed is stress-free. They have their own challenges and their own stresses, and people who are bootstrapping have their own as well. But you just have to be able to have that skin. You got to have that grit. And this is why I say it's okay to talk to people, right? Like I got to the point where I'm okay with sharing our failures because it's going to make other people learn from it. I think the entrepreneur ecosystem years ago was everyone's got to walk into a room with the nicest clothes and be like, oh, I just made $1 million. You know, I'm just going to take my money and splash it around. That's not the way the ecosystem is now, right? The entrepreneurial ecosystem that Markham is growing, the York region is growing, is to share failures, to share stories with each other, to say, hey man, I haven't been paid in 3 months. What about you? You know, what are grants that are available to help me? What are different programs to help me to do marketing better, to do sales that are better? So take advantage of those things, because that's what's going to help you keep going. And that's what's going to help you by knowing that you're not in this alone. You have other people to turn to, right? So that's a key element to make sure that your mindset stays the same. Oh, and I have a spelling error there. Next slide is really just, I get asked this a lot, which is how long do I bootstrap for? So with our story, right? So we have been bootstrapped since day one. We went live with the software in July of 2016. We're now in 2020, and it is something that we are strongly considering now, is going to get some outside capital, because in order to scale and to take our company to the next level, to get more volume of users on, we've kind of outlined everything and outweighed all of our options. And that's what we realized, is that's something that we still have to consider, and that's where we're going. But so I took about 4 years to figure out. You saw one of the other success stories was about a 10-year time for bootstrapping. You've heard others do it for longer. What I found, and this is what others have told me from other angel investors and other VCs, is that if you have a proven business model and a really good story to tell investors, that you're in a much better position to negotiate a deal, right? You're not going in at ideation or startup where you have zero sales. And so you're kind of in the hands of the VC. With us, where we are now, is we have traction, we have revenue, we have clients using our system, we have testimonials, we have all of that. So we can go out and, quote unquote, if you will, be a little bit more choosy, right? Like, we're looking for a strategic partner to open up doors for us, but that's a choice we made. And, you know, we hustled and we bootstrapped until the point where we knew, okay, now we've got something to go to a VC with, as opposed to giving up too much of our equity first, you know, at the beginning. Now we don't have to give as much. And we know what we can do with it with $1, right? Like, we can go to a VC and say, listen, this is what we've done with bootstrapping. This is what we've done with this minimum $1 amount. Imagine what we can do with your money, right? So I guess my advice at this point would just be, you know, if capital is truly restraining you from scaling, then look at outside investment, you know, but if you can keep going the way you're going, then do that. So, bootstrap as long as possible before you consider investment would be my, advice, only because I feel like it does put you in a stronger position when you do approach, outside investors. All right, next slide, what we've learned. So basically, next slide, Nafis. Bootstrapping will challenge you to think outside the box, to do things differently. You got to be scrappy, you got to be crafty that way. You are forced to always look for innovative ways to grow your company. So that's maybe partnerships, co-marketing, talking to mentors, talking to other people to validate your business idea. Another one that hopefully we've all learned, and something we learned, is hire people that are on board with your vision, that share similar values and are prepared to work hard. Because once you have those people that buy into the business vision, keep them and appreciate them. And what we've also learned, I've learned, is adding sriracha to a cup of noodles makes it taste so much better, because we had to live off of cup of noodles a lot. But sriracha makes it a whole lot better. So, and then the last slide, which is something I actually, me too, actually, I'm kind of hungry, is entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. So it's going to require a lot of hustle and grit at the beginning, but just imagine the rewards later on. So yeah. Any questions? That's it for me. Yes, to all of those, definitely, definitely share or contact me if you have any questions. Connect with me on LinkedIn too. Just look up, I think it's just my first and last name, so just look me up. And yeah, I'd be happy to help anybody in terms of questions or advice, whatever you guys need. Thanks, guys. Have a great evening. Stay safe and healthy.